colocar agora.
Imagina, no meio da apresentação aparece um WhatsApp. Sacana de um amigo meu.
Uhum. Quando terminar, não tira, tá? Fica aí, fica ali um minutinho.
Não, eu vou deixar aqui. Ah, tá bom. Putz, cadê o meu? Muita coisa aberta esse computador. Fecha o WhatsApp. Fecha tudo. Tem uma coisa que eu precisava aqui.
Não, eu não, foi você.
Fechar o meu computador também, peraí. Pronto.
Só baixa, depois você vê. Não tem nada que vai bater. Fica
O que você
aqui,
quer?
por favor. Calma aí.
Você não vai precisar disso aqui, você sabe, né? Tá, pode baixar isso.
Ok. Isso aqui é o quê?
Você quer botar o hino? É isso?
Aquilo ali é
Vou
o
fazer a
hino.
sugestão. Por que você não bota o hino no seu celular? Você dá o play e só põe esse microfone em cima dele.
Porque eu quero que você tenha lyrics pro povo cantar junto.
Ah, tá.
Ok, this is all I need, certo?
Uhum.
Aqui tá a música Relaxing, já tiramos. Vai ficar daqui, deixa aqui. Aqui tá o Anthem e aqui tá minha música mais tarde, só isso. Mas a minha música é só depois do break anyway.
Tá
Então,
bom. E esse negócio do Brasil é logo no início mesmo? É a primeira coisa?
play from start. É a segunda. Primeiro é o American US National Anthem. Depois é o Brazilian National Anthem. Por quê?
Ah, você vai trocar a tela na hora, né?
A música tá com a,
Você não quer botar um slide ali não? Só pra não se perder?
Não, não vou
Então tá,
perder.
tá.
Obrigada.
Pode ligar.
Agora pode.
Play from start.
Mas aí vai ficar no timer, não?
Não era pra ter timer não.
Tá. Isso.
Ficou tão estranho agora?
Isso vai demorar um pouquinho.
Não deve demorar. Quero ver só. Cadê o mouse que tava aqui?
O hino
Tá ali no. Tá numa outra. Tá no browser, numa outra aba.
então eu vou ter que na hora mexer, né?
Tá? Eu vou estar aqui do lado, né? Quando você me chama, a gente vem então.
Tá bom. Tem como congelar essa tela lá pra pessoa não ver o que eu tô mexendo?
Tem. Na hora que você quiser fazer isso. Ah, boa, Marcelo. Na hora que você quiser fazer isso, você clica nesse PC aqui e põe nesses dois. Entendeu? Que aí vai voltar para esse slide inicial, que tá aqui, esse aqui.
Acho que eu vou fazer isso agora porque.
Deixa eu ir, aí você pode ficar mexendo.
Porque o primeiro, depois do Open Play e tudo mais, já vai ser o hino nacional.
E aí você volta pra ali.
Então eu já vou deixar aqui o hino pronto.
Ah, mas na hora que você botar no slide do hino, vai começar a tocar música.
Ah, então não vou deixar o
Você aperta o próximo
um
aqui que
slide.
ele vai tocar música. É um slide que vai começar a passar.
É um slide, mas não tá nesse jogo de slide, tá separado.
Ele tá nesse jogo de slide. Você aperta próximo e ele vai começar.
Ah, não, mas o próximo é o do Brasil.
Isso.
Não, mas vindo dos Estados Unidos.
Ah, não, vai ter que dar um ESC pra ir pra...
Ah, então isso, acho que eu vou deixar lá, então. Já vou deixar
pode
lá,
ser.
melhor.
Dá um desliga. Deixa eu te mostrar um negócio também. Assim. O slide, ele fica meio lerdo. Eu não sei porquê. Mas, ó. Quando você entrar no modo apresentador, você pode apertar só esse aqui em cima do modo, tá vendo? Ele vai voltar pro slide que tá lá já. Então ele volta pro início.
Perfeito.
E essa tela não serve para o Daniel, ele precisa dessa tela, só para você ficar ciente disso. Tá? Porque para nesse computador é o que ele vai ver lá, tá? Então, acaba que se fizer isso, vai começar com ele vendo o hino nacional americano e não esse logo.
A gente imprimiu 3 esquerdos.
Mas ele não vai precisar do logo agora.
Tudo bem.
Ele vai ver o hino nacional, mas ele não vai colocar o hino. Mas
Então,
ele
ó,
precisa ver o logo.
A apresentação está aqui no canto em cima, tá? Esse não vai precisar, deixa eu diminuir, porque já está ali dentro. Já copiei. Não sei por que esse cara não quer sair da frente, eu vou botar ele aqui para baixo. Tá? O hino tá aqui.
Tá, então a gente começa com esse.
Tá? E aí depois a Bela vai botar o Jason Moraes no final.
Vai colocar o quê?
O outro lá no final.
Deixa aqui.
É só apertar a cor.
Aí você põe aqui em tela cheia. Exato, pronto. Aí ele vai ver.
Já deixa aqui então, tá?
Tá? Fala, Sérgio.
Preciso de Wi-Fi no meu computador. Porque eu vou estar administrando a conta do PlayStation.
Quer já o...
aconteceu aqui?
Já tá no hino, tá certo.
Ah, tá certo?
É, já deixa pra cantar o hino pra não ter
Porque não vai
ficado
apresentar
dando pra
nada
lá e pra
antes,
cá.
né?
É.
Então deixa aqui na hora, eu mudo pra lectern
Isso, então
e
aqui
mudo aqui.
continua igual, né? Opening prayer. Só que antes do opening prayer, do welcome, aí ele lê o opening prayer e o national anthem. Aí depois
Isso, aí você só fala de fazer uma dedicação, né?
Tá bom.
Tá, eu vou chamar ele.
É, chama. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome, everyone, in this rainy day here in New York. It's the best weather for us to be here indoors to talk about suicide prevention. And this is the first suicide prevention, how Spiritism can help here in New York. Many of you, I think you've been in the previous one. Every year we have a suicide prevention workshop in Long Island. And this year we are having, usually it's 1 week before Thanksgiving in Long Island. And this year we are starting this new edition here in Brooklyn with young adults. So it's the difference that we have this year. And it's important for us to think about that, to really be able to talk about suicide, because it is a topic that usually people don't talk about. It's still seen as a taboo. And it's important for us to talk about that, because just some examples that I have some numbers here. All over the world, 800,000 suicides happen every year. That means one suicide in every 40 seconds. And only here in the US, it is the second leading cause of death among young people between 15 and 29 years old. That's why it's so important for us to have this event here and to have young adults here talking with us, sharing their experience with us. And not only about numbers, but the most important thing is for us to think about the examples that we have and the stories that we have. Only this past week, we have a WhatsApp group that we were making the last topics and organizing the event. And there were many people shared their stories or stories of people very close to them who committed suicide, or some cases or stories that they have from people very close to them. So if we see that, I can bet almost everybody here was affected, has been affected by someone very close who committed suicide or knows someone who committed suicide. That's why it's very important for us to be able to have this space, this opportunity here to talk about it. And just to explain a little bit about the event, we are having 4 lectures by Marina Story, João Zago, Sara Santos, and Emily Cornwell. We are having 2 lectures, a coffee break, then 2 more lectures, a Q&A. So during all the lectures and all the talks, if you have any questions and you'd like to write down the questions so we can use them during the Q&A in the last part of this meeting. And also, do we have the fraternal assistance here? Yeah. Also, another thing that we have is the fraternal assistance. So if anybody needs to talk to someone, we have people here who are having this fraternal assistance. For the ones who are not familiar with that, it's not a therapy, it's just a moment for us to talk, to have someone with whom we can share our emotions, our feelings, anything that is happening in our lives. And so by talking with them, they can give us some answers, some ways for us to think about those problems according to the Spiritism. And so it's all based in the Spiritism. So if anybody wants to have this fraternal assistance, just talk to Dulce or to any other of our volunteers here, and so they can help us with that. And now, before we start, we are having Gabriel Corngold to read for us a passage from the book, Spiritist Prayers.
Hello, everybody. Happy Mother's Day. Act of submission and resignation. When something that causes pain or suffering happens to us, once we seek its cause, we often find that it is the result of our own imprudence, our improvidence, or an earlier action. In this case, we should only blame ourselves. If we took no part whatsoever in the cause of a misfortune, then it is either a test for our current life or an atonement for a past existence. In the latter case, the nature of the atonement can be indicative of the nature of the fault itself, since we are always punished within the scope of our wrongdoing. In whatever afflicts us, we generally see only the current evil and not the subsequent favorable outcomes that it may have. Good is often the result of a transient malady, since the healing of a patient is often the result of the painful means employed to obtain it. In any case, we must submit to the will of God, bear with courage all tribulations of life, if we want this to be taken into account, so that this saying by Jesus Christ is applied to us. Blessed are those who suffer.
So now we are going to our opening prayer. So I'd like to ask everybody to close our eyes, to elevate our thoughts. And we ask you, God, and our beloved Master Jesus, the permission to start this workshop and these talks here about suicide prevention. Thanking you for having this blessed opportunity to be here, to have all this help that we have from our guides, from all the mentors in the spirit realm, from our Mother Mary, and all their workers who are here with us. Please, God, allow this shower of light to be here within each one of us, inspiring us and helping us to be good workers, to be good instruments to you. And please, God, allow all this love that we have here in this room to be shared with everyone around us, everyone here in the city, here in this country. May every soul who is thinking about committing suicide to receive a helping hand, to receive your blessings, and to be able to open their eyes and minds to see this beautiful world that we have around us. Please, God, help us today and always, and so be it. And just one more thing, today is Mother's Day, so as we have all these young adults here with us, as Gabriel, who just read to us, we have Marina, we have Emily, we have João, and we have Sarah, and we have their mothers too. So thank you so much, Jussara, Dulce, Kirsten, and Angela, for allowing your kids to be here with us, sharing their experience in this beautiful moment with us. And now we are going to, just one moment, still dealing with the technology here, so. Just now we're going to have the U.S. National Anthem for us to to hear and to sing. So everybody feel welcome to join us.
Oh, say can you see
Sing with us.
by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose red stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets with glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of death with victory and peace? May the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must when our cause it is just, and this be our motto: in God is our trust, and the star-spangled banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Ajuda ele. Levanta aqui pra deixar. Yeah. Deixa eu mudar aqui primeiro.
Mas tem que ser na tela cheia, para o Daniel poder ver.
Como faz, você sabe? Assim? Só, tu muda aqui.
Isso, pra cá, pra cá.
Posso mudar? Ah, aqui, vamos botar na hora que você tá.
So as we just saw, the suicide rate all over the world is very high, and so it is also a global issue, and one that society usually doesn't talk a lot. So that's why it's very important, as I said, for us to have this moment here. And every year here we are dedicating a moment in the beginning of the workshop to a different country whose population is affected by suicide. So this year we chose Brazil, a country that is very close to many of us here, and that is known by its happiness, its festivities, the good music, good food, soccer, and many other attributes. But it's also a country affected by suicide. Every year, 11,000 Brazilians take their own life. That means 31 persons every day. So we'd like to ask the mentors of Brazil, the messengers that work with Jesus, to envelop Brazil as its inhabitants with tons of love, peace, and light, sending these good and elevated vibrations to every person that committed suicide, to the ones that are thinking about that, and also to their family members and friends. So now I'd like to invite Marina Story to be here with us. And Marina Story is currently studying drama at the New School. She has been studying Spiritism during all her life and plans on continuing her education. Marina has been heavily involved in the Spiritist work at Long Island Spiritist Doctrine Study Group, having many tasks as performing and hosting events. Thank you, Marina.
This one isn't mine.
Are you using this one?
No, that's Sarah's.
Okay, so do you need to use anything here? No.
Yeah.
Which one?
It was on the Firefox.
The Firefox?
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, right here. Okay, so that's showing. How do I go back? Oh god, everyone just saw my entire thing. That's fun. Wait, how do I start from the beginning with this? Yeah, it just started from the end for some reason. Okay.
Easiest way.
Thank you. So, how the 21st century adds challenges to today's teenagers. One of the problems many teenagers face nowadays is sleep deprivation. So, sending kids to school at 7 a.m. is the equivalent if all of you guys went to work at 4 a.m. Because of how our bodies are growing and changing, we aren't ready to deal with the stresses that school and jobs and sports come across. So our body needs around 9 hours of sleep, but most teenagers don't even get to go to bed until 12. And if we have school at 7, we're waking up at 6. So our body isn't fully functioning to the optimal alertness that we would want to have. So that affects our mental state because if we aren't sleeping well enough, we aren't able to handle our emotions well enough, causing us to act out in cranky ways, as I'm sure you people with kids would know. So yes, the alertness of teenagers' emotions is also going down with the lack of sleep that we've been having. Part of the problem is that students are so overwhelmed with things that we have to do nowadays. You need so many extracurriculars to get into college. You need to do clubs, sports, jobs. You're involved in your church, so if you have school until 3 and then you do all your sports and all your schoolwork, it's going to decline performance, you're going to have memory lapses, mood swings, and it's going to add to behavioral problems because of the lack of sleep that we're having. Emotions with you 24/7. It's an exhausting prospect, and it's not just your hormones. Rapid growth spurts, periods, acne, and unrelated adolescent children in America increased from 8.7% in 2005 to 11.3% in 2014. The study also notes that the risk of depression sharply rises as children transition into adolescence. Also, the problem that we have faced now that I've talked to a lot of my peers about, I've talked to my sisters about, even the teachers have a problem with, is that our education system is based off perfection, and perfection is not attainable. Since we are 9 years old, we have to take the New York State test, and other states have their own tests, that you're either right or wrong. There's no maybe, there's no gray area, there's no explanation or going into creativity. So being 9 years old, forcing to take these 3-hour tests, and basically our entire education system is kind of making us ready for those tests that we have to take at the end of the year. Histories that of course are important, but it's taking the fun out of learning. It's taking the fun out of education. So students end up being a test score. The American education has molded kids into believing that you are either right or wrong. Students as young as 9 years old start taking these state-mandated tests, and that entire year the teachers are training them to perform well. Education over the years has become less and less about learning and more about actually just being correct. Chasing that perfection has impacted kids to add more pressure on themselves, to make themselves proud, their educators, and especially their parents. So I go to school for not having a straight answer. So we'll do many scenes in class and we'll be like, was that right? Was that good? And the acting teacher is like, it's not about being right. It's not about how, if you got it spot on, it's about how you feel. And teenagers aren't, not even teenagers, even kids nowadays and young adults in college, they aren't even thinking and having a process about their creativity. It's just about the A, B, C, or D answer. And no one nowadays truthfully listens to the feelings other than their peers. So teenagers are getting stressed and their parents are stressed because of bills, and their teachers obviously care about how they're feeling, but in a 42-minute period, they have to learn math. We're not here to talk about our feelings. So nowadays, kids are going to their other peers that are going through the same obstacles as they are, so they aren't the best educated as well. So to conquer this, we need an open communication with parents. Parents, even if your kid is being cranky and you ask them, how was your day, what did you do, and they say nothing. Nothing, I learned nothing at school today. And they just go into their room, talk to them, create conversation, how I'm feeling, and they were always very open with communication with me. I never felt like I had to hide anything from them. Girls with like beautiful bodies, beautiful faces, and I'm like, oh, I'm not like that. Or there's a lot of Instagram influencers that go traveling around the world, and I'm just like, ugh. Like, I'm not doing that with my life, and it just, like, it doesn't motivate you as much. So, kids, talk to your parents, talk to your friends, and if your friends are dealing with feelings, don't think that they're just being dramatic. Don't think that they're just being another sad girl or sad boy. Like, you have to take everything that your friends or your children take seriously, because that's their feelings. You can't discredit that, how they feel. So, thoughts on suicide according to Spiritism. What about those who resort to suicide in order to escape from the troubles of this world? Question 946. God helps those who suffer, but not those who have neither nor courage. The tribulations of life are meant as trials or expiations. So basically what that was saying was, of course, we are all going through trials, we are going through tribulations, all of us, but adults, you guys have a better grasp on how to deal with it. You guys have more experience, and kids, we just don't have that. We're going through this, we're figuring things out, especially on our own, because the way we grew up is not anywhere close to the way you grew up. When you guys were kids, you rode on your bike, you left home in the morning, and then came back at night, and your parents didn't know what you were doing, and you were with your friends. But nowadays, we're always connected, always on our phones, so that has created kind of an anxiety to kids, because we're always connected to the outside world no matter what. Especially right before you go to bed, I go on my phone and I'm connected. I don't have the time to just calm down, and I know it's not just me, I know it's my friends as well. And as many times as I say, I'm going to delete Instagram, I'm not going to go on it, I'm not going to go on Twitter, I'm not going to go on my phone for the whole day, you can't help it. It becomes a habit. So that has made it harder for kids and teenagers to kind of just disconnect themselves. But I found that at the end of the day, I have been meditating after class and after my finals and after work. Even if I'm exhausted, I found an app that my father actually showed me, the Calm app, and there's podcasts. There's podcasts, and I just take that moment, even if you have 5 minutes in the day, just to pray, just to have a conversation with God, and just to keep your spirituality in check, because sometimes you forget about Him, He never forgets about you. And I truly feel that after I do the passes with my mom, or I visit my mom on the weekends, and I go to the Spirit Center on Sundays, I just do feel better. I feel lighter. So we have to lean to God instead of finding other distractions, such as our phone, such as parties, such as Netflix. To go through the things that we're going through, we have to find a way to disconnect from the world. So I just wanted to thank you all for listening to me. I left the suicide hotline, 1-800-273-8255 on there. And yes, it's a 24-hour hotline. You could call it at any time. There are ones dedicated for teenagers. If you go there, you could call a spokesperson. They will talk to you. But adults may use it as well. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Marina. And just remembering, we are having Q&A after the 4 talks. If you'd like to write your questions, just talk to Bella. Bella has papers, Bella has pens, so Bella is the one to give you the right tools for us to have the Q&A. And now I'd like to introduce Sara dos Santos. Sara dos Santos. Sara is the daughter of Daniel and Kirsten dos Santos and is an 11th grade student at Liberty High School in Maryland. She actively participates in the Spiritist program for youth and children and the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. She loves to sing, and she sings beautifully, and has a published song on iTunes and participated in dramas productions at her school as well. Thank you, Sara.
Hello. Okay, clearly I cannot use technology. But I just want to say thank you guys for inviting me here today to talk, and thank you for the organizers for inviting me here. And I also want to apologize in advance because I had prom last night and my voice is like kind of going, so just bear with me for a little bit. But I just wanted to start out by acknowledging what suicide is, and it's the act of intentionally hurting oneself. And it's the second leading cause of death in America after heart disease and cancer. And approximately 6,252 teens die each year from suicide alone. And there's a lot of causes for suicide, and it's usually things happening in your life and you feel like you're not able to handle it alone. And victims by suicide experience like this tunnel vision, and they feel like the only option to get out of what they're going through is to just take their life. But not a lot of people realize that what you're doing is you're not only creating more problems for yourself, really, you're not getting rid of the problems still come with you. And there was actually like kids at my school who tried to commit suicide, and they were like really close to me, and that kind of shocked me because, you know, you hear about suicide and you hear about it's a thing, and you don't really I don't feel like people really grasp it, and they're not like, oh, it's a thing, until you really like see it right in front of your face. Like I remember my friend pulling me aside and telling me, hey, like this person's in the hospital, like they're okay, but like they attempted to take their life, and that just kind of was an eye opener, and it was just crazy, and it's crazy. And a lot of the factors contributing to suicide is relationship problems, substance use, and crisis in the past or upcoming 2 weeks. And it's not only like anxiety and depression, like what Marina was saying, it's also like outside factors. But it's a real thing, and it happens. From Spiritist perspective, it gives us this new perspective that we're immortal spirits living a human experience. We don't die if we cut our life short. A lot of people try to say that when we die, like life just ceases to exist, but that's not true. We have past reincarnations, and we have like many lives ahead of us and behind us, and it just doesn't end when you try to end your life. And in the book Memoirs of a Suicide, Ivone Pereira talks about how we're all creatures of habit, and people who attempt to commit suicide are not doing this for the first time. And many of the spirits that have suffered from this before are believed to have gone through it before. So I feel like if you hear about people who committed suicide or have tried to commit suicide, it's not their first time. People have been going through this for many, many lifetimes, and it's an ongoing thing. And yeah, it happens a lot. And the case in Memoirs of a Suicide, an example of this, and you don't have to read this. This is just like a whole big thing. But there was this guy in chapter 18. His name is Amadeo, and he was a really hard worker and had a pretty decent life, and he worked at the bank, and he had this amazing life, but suddenly found he had throat cancer, and so he was kind of grief-stricken, and he was unable to pay for the treatment, so he decided to steal a lot of money from the bank. And the bank, shortly after, of course, found out that he had stole this huge amount of money, and he was kind of put into this flight or fight situation, and he had two options. He could either tough it out, go to jail, but die of cancer in jail, or he could take his own life, and unfortunately, he decided to take his own life. And he suffered a lot on the other side and was taken to the Valley of Suicides, and he was there for quite some time until a group of spirits came and decided to help him. And he was taken to this institution, the spirit world. And this professor had come to talk to a group of people who had committed suicide who were in the same boat as Amadeo, and they were doing a lot of self-reflection and a lot of group therapy work. And so one day, the professor had like this contraption thing, and when you put it on your head, you could see your past life. So they did that to Amadeo, and then what was revealed was that he was a slave owner in his past life, and he had lots of land and slaves. And this one particular family, he decided to pick a girl from that family, and he decided to sexually torment her and rape her. And she was so distraught by this, and she took her own life. And the father of this girl went up to the slave master and said that he was going to go to bad places for raping his daughter and doing all this stuff to his daughter. And Amadeo was listening to this, and he was like, okay, all right. And later on, he ordered his tongue to be cut out. And so Felicio, the slave, he had bled out, and he had suffered from convulsions and then died. And after all this was done, Amadeo was just looking at this whole thing and processing it, and he was like, that just wasn't me. I don't know who this man is. Like, he just couldn't remember because we don't remember our past lives. And the professor was listening to him talk, and he brought in a spirit, and it had been Felicio. And then when Amadeo saw Felicio, he became really emotional because Felicio had suddenly embodied the figure of his father, and Amadeo had realized that in his most previous incarnation, Felicio had agreed to be his father. And Amadeo was so fond, and he loved his father so much, so it literally brought him to his knees because he realized that his father had come back to help him and regain a new perspective on the beauty of life. Because a lot of the problems nowadays is that a lot of people who suffer from depression or anxiety or who have suicidal thoughts, they don't have the right perspective. I feel like they're just kind of looking at things as glass half empty instead of half full, because when you're, like what Marina said, when you're like pressed with all these like outside pressures, you become so overwhelmed and you don't know how to handle it. So you just think that the only way and the only solution is to just take your life because you feel like, oh, if I just do this, then I won't have any more problems anymore. My problems will be gone. And Felicio had come back to help Amadeo regain a new perspective, because a lot of the times it's perspective. So what do you do when faced with these problems? You need to get the treatment you or a loved one needs. And if someone cannot advocate for themselves, you need to advocate for them. And what does it mean to advocate for someone? It means if somebody else is going through something and you know they're going through something, you should really tell someone. You should tell an adult, tell a trusted friend, and you shouldn't think of it as, oh, like they're going to hate me if I tell someone. It's better to tell someone that someone else is going through something and talk to somebody else than just to watch them suffer. And if you yourself are going through something, you should really talk to like a counselor, a therapist. There's a lot of like life coaches or like therapists or school counselors for anyone who's in high school. There's like, one other person. But and by doing this, you can establish a support network around you with the help of colleagues, counselors, family members. And it's really good to establish like the support network, because you want to feel like you can talk to other people, and you want to feel like people can come to you and you can go to other people, because talking is amazing, and you need to express your feelings, because if you don't, everything is going to build up, and then one day something's going to happen, and then it's just going to be bad. And if you have suicidal thoughts, remember, treatment can help you regain perspective on life and what's going on. And Spiritism can help us because it brings awareness about the true purpose of our current life and how to cope with our struggles. And it allows you to see that God gave you a lot of struggles for a reason. Like, God doesn't give you more than you can handle, because that would just be unfair. He gives you the things that you're going through for a reason. Like, I remember when there was this movie when I was little, like it's called Soul Surfer. I don't know if any of you have seen it, with the girl who got her leg cut off, and I was just watching it, and I was like, this girl, how can she go through that? I feel like if I was in her position, I would just lose it. Like, I would just be like, oh my God. But God gave that to her for a reason. I mean, you see, she's stronger because of it, like physically and mentally. Like, she is one of the strongest people I know. Bethany Hamilton, I think her name is, yeah. And that's just amazing. I mean, God's not giving that to her because he's unfair and wants to see her suffer. God's giving it to her because he knows that she can do it and that she can become stronger because of it. So if you talk to people at your Spiritus Center and reach out to them, they will definitely reach out back. I know, like at my centers and other centers, people have come up to me, like random people, and they've just been so nice, and I've been like, oh my goodness, like they are just so sweet. And study groups, counseling, and passes are provided at your Spiritus Center. The teachings from the study group and counseling and all like the passes, like you can really meditate with that, and things you learn from there are really, really helpful. Like at my center, I used to go to the study groups, not anymore because of school, but it was really nice and it was really like therapeutic. And even though sometimes when I was little, I didn't understand what they were talking about, I just felt so happy when I left because it was such a nice environment to be in. And again, understanding that death doesn't exist and we live many lifetimes, and by ending your life only ends life with the physical body. We have many lifetimes, and God gives us these trials and tribulations because he knows we can handle it. And I feel like ending your life is just like kind of finding a way out, but you got to find a way to endure it and go through it, because literally what does not kill you makes you stronger. And it's a beautiful thing when you go through something so hard and then you're like, you finally get through it, you're kind of like, oh, is this over with? Are we done? But like, you know that once you endure one thing that's really hard, you can go through many more things that are even harder, and it's just a wonderful thing. And thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And now we are having a 15-minute coffee break. And again, if you have any questions, just see Bella. Bella has pens and pencils and papers, and you can write down the questions. She's going to give it to me. And coming back from the coffee break, we're having 2 more talks and then the Q&A session. Thank you.